Broadway's Bit by Bit, the only Broadway podcast dedicated to the investor-producer relationship. I am your host, Megan Ann Rasmussen. Sometimes we forget the business of Broadway. And without the business aspect of what we do, we can't bring life-changing stories to the stage. This bonus podcast episode is a deep dive into the often overlooked key systems of email. My guest today is Tony Howell, a Broadway alum turned healthy CEO, educator, and coach. I first started working with Tony at the beginning of 2021 in his year-long mastermind, where we met weekly to build our individual Broadway businesses. I have so much to thank Tony for. He laid the foundation for where I am today, including helping me share with the world when I won Producer of the Year, when I became a co-producer on my first Broadway musical, and when I attended my first opening night of a brand new Broadway musical. And more than that, Tony is a lovely human. He is smart. He's detailed, he cares deeply, and is on a mission to help you become a healthy CEO. Tony, truly, it is such a pleasure to have you here. Welcome.
It's an honor to be here, Megan Ann. I am a big fan of you. You are one of the world's biggest cheerleaders, but I love who you are as a human, but particularly the work that you do. You are a change maker. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. We are talking to you while you were living in Bali. Can you tell us how you got from Broadway to Bali?
Sure. I started doing home swapping in New York. And maybe we'll go back and talk about my career evolution. But I was trading my New York City studio to go live in Paris, to go live in New Zealand, to go live in Barcelona. And that opened my eyes. And along the way, I met an entrepreneur from Australia that I then followed on Instagram. And he had this fabulous life in Bali. And I did spend some time outside of New York. I moved home to be with my mother and my stepfather. He was ill and I wanted to help my mom through that transition. And after going through that together, then I was like, I want to travel just to do a little bit of healing. But in my mind, I was auditioning Thailand and Bali to see if I wanted to move there for at least a year. So I did a 3-week stint hopping around Thailand and a 3-week stint hopping around Bali. And when I met a parent that moved their kids and family from Brooklyn, New York to Bali to put their kids in a green school where they're learning about, environmentalism, I was like, well, if this family from Brooklyn can move from New York and come to Bali, then I can as well. And the fun thing, Megan Ann, is there's a nickname called that it's Silicon Bali, that there's so many people like me, of people that work in tech and business and online, that there's just a growing population of us. So in some ways, it's like New York. It's just a different island. Like New York was my theater tribe, and now in Bali, I have my tech tribe.
Oh, fantastic. And let's take that journey into your Broadway beginnings. How did you get to Broadway? How did Broadway get you here?
Well, I will rewind. When I was growing up, and that famous question, what do you want to be when you grow up? My answers in first grade were 3 A's. I wanted to be an actor, an author, or an artist. And I kind of grew up in all of those media forms, writing, visual arts, and performing arts. Fast forward, there were a couple of key moments. When I was 17, I lost my father very suddenly, very surprisingly. And at the time, I was doing The Sound of Music at Beef and Board's Dinner Theater. And it was such a gift for me to go be Friedrich von Trapp for 2 hours a night to kind of escape from our family, trauma. And it was at that moment towards making college decisions that I realized that that's what the arts do for other people, is it helps them, even if it's just the most frivolous fluff piece, it helps people forget their troubles, like in cabaret. So I decided to pursue theater. And fast forward, I had a great career. So I started performing when I was 10. And the last big job that I did was the first national tour of Evita. And I never worked in Times Square 8 times a week, but I did Broadway tours, Broadway benefits, all of that. And along the way, I got to a point where I realized this is my second big tour and something's off. So I call it a Shavasana moment, Megan Ann, where you have to lay there and face the truth. And I was like, why is something feel off? And I combine that even for my students with an exercise maybe from freshman year acting class about tactics. And so I always ask people, which is what I did for myself, why did you become an actor? What was your intent? What was your purpose? And the verbs that I created were I wanted to inspire people and I wanted to create. But what I realized along the way about commercial theater is that very little of it is creation for an actor. Most of the time you're interpreting and then executing 8 times a week for, years if you're lucky. So that's when I decided to start my business. I knew that my tour would end and I wanted to be my own boss when I got back to New York. And it started as a social media seminar that I was teaching at colleges along the way. That evolved into an online course. Well, then the professional market in New York, once I got back, wasn't ready to pay for social media training. So we became somewhat of a website design agency. And I say after building hundreds of websites, I realized I'm not building websites, I'm building people's businesses and their brands. And so that's what's created a color-coded methodology that I think really is not just for artists. I think if someone is an entrepreneur, they need all of these elements. And that's the long and the short of it. But I started as an actor wanting to inspire and create. And then I realized that I maybe have the opportunity to help others tell their stories in a different way.
Tony, you inspire me and so many within the Tony Howell community to create. I've watched you build businesses, brands, people. You have this wonderful skill to be able to help, listen to someone talk about what they want to do, extrapolate how they want to do it, and then hold up the mirror and show them who they are. And it's like this aha moment. And you do that so beautifully. I really commend you for that. I know that you've worked with a number of Broadway A-listers. And while I want to ask you to drop names, but you can if you want to. Can you tell us what you have learned about the business of Broadway from working with some of these Broadway's best?
Yeah, and I want to reflect back. I think one of the skills that you're talking about is from learning how to act, learning how to step into someone's shoes and see the world through their eyes. And that is just, I want to plant that seed for anyone else who may be considering a career expansion, that there are transferable skills no matter where you are in the arts. Lessons along the way. I also have to credit my survival job. When I first moved to New York, I was working at Music Theater International, which is the licensing company of hundreds of musicals. And to me, Megan Ann, maybe that was the predecessor that I needed because, there were conversations, Sondheim's stopping by, Stephen Schwartz is coming by today. And so I realized at that point that these are just humans, that though they have awards and maybe wealth, that they are just artists like the rest of us. And so I think that offered me an insight that I did not have when I'm auditioning at Ripley Greer Pearl Studios, that it's truly a community of people making the show happen. Now, fast forward, I started my company in 2013. This year is the 10th anniversary, which is wild. And I'm excited to return to New York and have some parties with people. I guess the people you might be referring to, I was very lucky to collaborate with Susan Stroman on her official website. My biggest takeaway from working with Stro is it was like putting on a show. And I interviewed her on my podcast to kind of ask. And so we did pre-production. We had, deadlines of this is our first preview, this is our opening night, things like that. One of the interesting things that she shared with me, I asked her how does she open a show, because I wanted to know how to design her homepage. I wanted to know how to design each show page, the producers, Scottsboro Boys, etc. And so she likes to set the scene. Essentially, it's exposition and she creates authority. But I think what I learned about the secret to her success came on that podcast interview is treating everyone with respect. That if everyone in the room has permission to share ideas or fail, that really generates the best product possible. Also collaborated with a dear friend of ours, Ken Davenport. And he's a unique person because I've known about Ken for years from my time at MTI. And as I was working with Ken, one of the things that I said, I was like, Ken, I've known you for years, but there are parts of your story that I'm not even aware of, that you're a first generation American, that you were truly a high school theater nerd that, found his way in the business. So I'm excited that his website kind of shares some of those stories that people may not know about. But just from knowing Ken and working with Kim, I also see how much, and even through the pandemic for all of us, how much resourcefulness and creativity is needed to create anything in the industry. So those are two examples. A relatively new client, we just soft launched their website. Tegan Summer is from the West End. He's a producer. So I feel like that might be interesting for your your listeners, but he has the rights to the largest collection of bio musicals. So he's writing musicals on Harvey Milk, on Marilyn Monroe, on Nan Mozart. And I think with Tegan, we've had conversations and, what does he learn from talking with the Malcolm X estate? And the bottom line is that it's a human experience. And so all of these legends have cautionary tales or things for us to learn from. But that's the thing that I think theater presents is, though it's a specific story, is really what unites us all together. It's like those universal threads.
Oh, I love hearing your takeaways, Tony, from the people that you've been able to work with and how that shaped your work and also how you can help shape the work of others as you continue along this journey. You also worked with Sierra Boggess.
Yes, my dear friend Sierra, she is magic. And that site is, a labor of love. You can check it out if you want, sierraboggess.com. But yeah, I love creating with people. And then the interesting thing, Megan Ann, is that now 10 years later, I have only like 25% new clients. 75% of our annual business is people coming back. And so with Sierra, we helped launch an album. We helped launch a product line. And so that's kind of, as I percolate on what I want for the future, that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking about is like, how can I help artists continue to find ways to reach new audiences and make money beyond, doing the show 8 times a week.
The real thing. There it is. Tony, we have touch points where I get to come back into your community and I love seeing all the things that you've changed. I'm always amazed when you screen share and you just go through the list of people, your clients that you've worked with. I love that you have returning clients, but there's like list upon list upon list. Like your fingerprints are everywhere. And I'm sure that that's a rewarding part of your job. That leads us right into like why you do what you do, but specifically I want to take like this pivot and take the deep dive into why like the business part, the healthy CEO. Can you talk to that before we dive into email excellence? Like, sure. Why is it important to be a healthy CEO?
Well, I do think that we've all seen the inequities in the world in the past couple of years specifically, but rewinding, the real catalyst for this was when social media was coming out. And I myself as an artist loved the power that I then had at my fingertips to literally talk to anyone and everyone at a moment's notice. Now that I know more about digital marketing 10 years later or more than 10 years later, I know that social media is just a piece of that. And it actually is almost shiny object syndrome for a lot of people that it doesn't have the ROI of email, which we'll get to. But the real reason behind a healthy CEO, Megan Ann, is because artists are their own business, whether you're a producer, whether you're a writer, whether you're a director, whether you're an actor. And we don't often get that training of how you run a business, but even some of the mindset stuff of saying like, I can create my own opportunities, or I can do marketing to go out there and find new job opportunities. So I've also had my own journey with wellness. And so this idea is that anyone can work 120 hours a week, but that's not really what we want to do. And so it's really, to me, that's the important thing, is that everyone creates their own definition of success with intention of wellness in there, so that they're not, running themselves ragged, trying to make a name for themselves.
Tony, we've had on this podcast a variety of individuals from a variety of backgrounds. So we've had attorneys, we've had designers, we've had producers and writers. What I love about talking to you is that this really is talking about the business of Broadway. And specifically, you've just launched a new course. This is a course, Email Excellence 1 Pro. Why do we need to talk about email?
Well, email is the most overlooked piece of the puzzle. Speaking of Tegan, I'm helping him move his daily operations from iCloud into a branded account at his many domains. So here's an example. I don't know this personally, but I imagine when Tom Schumacher goes to his office that it's sitting with a pile that says, this is for Lion King, this is for Aladdin, this is for Frozen. So what I love helping people do is create that for their email. And so for Tegan specifically, he can have an address that's Marilyn at Tegan Summer. He can have one that's Milk at Tegan Summer. And all the emails that can come in can either be color coded or automatically directed into folders that he opens up the world of Harvey Milk or Malcolm X or whoever it might be. But the reason why it's a course, Megan Ann, is because I've been teaching this for 10 years and specifically taught this course live for 4 years. And I wanted to just make it more accessible to people so that they can do it at their own speed. It is not the sexiest or most exciting of areas to dive into, but I would be curious to hear from you. I think that it is, something that really can create transformation, not only in your business, but also in your day-to-day life.
Oh, Tony, that's a perfect lead-in. So you and I have walked this walk together. I am a proud alum of email excellence. Do you remember when you told me that I needed to take my Gmail account and make it a pro account? And I was like, And there was like, maybe there are other listeners like me who like had one Gmail address that I've had for forever. And the idea of like migrating to a new system felt so overwhelming. And truth be told, there were a couple of days, even weeks when I was like, what have I done? What have I done? But now, like when I have to go back into that old system and retrieve an email, I'm like, I would never go back. And I think this is really underlooked, like this idea of how email is the way that we communicate with each other as humans, right? Like we're not on the phone. We're not seeing each other face to face in the city, especially post-pandemic. Like email is gold. So we should be paying more attention to it than we are.
Yeah. Megan Ann, you brought up something, and that's something that I like to highlight. I always ask people, how many physical addresses have you had in your life? So I lived at 505 North Madison. I moved to 240 North Main. And it's like, we're not scared of our physical mail reaching us at our new home addresses, but people do cling to email addresses because they're terrified that someone's not going to be able to reach them. But the class walks you through. You can still hold on to AOL if you want to get all that spam and noise and whatnot. But what the class can teach you to do is a slow changeover, maybe 6 months, 12 months, that you're eventually going to close up shop at AOL and you have yourself set up in a professional email address, just like Lin-Manuel Miranda. If you want to see something fun, go to his contact page and it says acting at Lin-Manuel, writing at Lin-Manuel. And so that's that idea that you can have different aliases for different projects. And I just geek out about this, so forgive me, but we've all been to Whole Foods or DSW or Sephora, and they ask for your email address when you're checking out. So I just am waiting for someone to like have a TikTok video that at the checkout you say, sure, it's promotions at Megan Ann Rasmussen. And then I want you to like film secretly and watch them go to your website after you've walked away, because it's just a daily way to tell people that you have a website in a very, very classy manner.
Well said. What are the common questions you get, Tony, about email? Like, can you share examples of how email has helped people find success? Why are you thinking about that? This migration of email was actually cathartic for me. Like some of the people that were contacting me, like maybe once upon a time I went to a tanning salon, like now we know better, but like they may have been following me for 20 years, right? And so I was glad to get rid of some of those contacts, right?
Yeah.
Do you have other stories of people? I know you talk about like that feels like a weight loss program because you can get rid of so many emails. Like we have to be able to focus on the important emails that are coming into our lives. Do you have any disaster stories that you've gained through your 10 years experience? Yikes.
Yeah. The two disaster stories that come to mind is there have been a couple of times where people contact me and it feels like 911 because their email went down, that they're using an archaic setup from GoDaddy or whatever it might be, and then it just stops working. So I've had a couple of those of Broadway directors that are like, my email's not working, help me. Or another where they are a coach, a prominent teacher in the New York community, and suddenly their emails are going to spam every email they send, including one-to-one. So that's some of the like not fun technical things, but I try to make it simple, easy, and fun. And we cover out how to protect yourself from those. And I will, with vulnerability, I maybe throw myself under the bus here, but right before launching this course, I was having an issue where emails were going to my trash can. And I got on with Google support and I found out that the reason why is because in creating the course, I was demonstrating Apple Mail, I was demonstrating another app. And so somewhere along the line, some of the routing got a little haywire. And so they told me to just reset my sign in and that should fix it. Well, Megan Ann, I locked myself out of my business email and I was tossed around like a pinball machine between Google domains, Google account recovery, Google Workspace. And so I share that as a cautionary tale that inside the course, I try to set you up for every possible thing that could go wrong. That's like you always have your backup information. And even if you don't take the course, people can go to their account at Yahoo, wherever. Always make sure that you have your phone and a secondary email, because we are in a world where people are hacking or whatnot. So it's just good. Even two-factor authentication, I think, is a great idea.
I've taken this course before and now seen the new revised course. You really do make it simple, easy, and fun. I think, Tony, you have a lot of superpowers, but this one probably more so, like taking complicated ideas, or complicated for people like me, and then distilling them into very simple, fun, easy steps. And your ability to like attach worksheets that are step-by-step and very detailed are so helpful. And you're so cheerful. Like when I see your face in this course, I'm like, next, please, more Tony, please, next, please. I love the bite-sized, manageable parts of this behemoth, which can be email, but it doesn't have to be a behemoth. We're talking about digital wellness. We're talking about strength and simplicity for the listeners who are the producers who may be producing a number of different shows. How helpful to see color-coded emails that are coming in from a variety of shows. For the first-time investors that are getting information from maybe a variety of shows, how do we color coordinate those so we know where our K1s are, so we know how to, when this capital call is for this investment. It's so important. And I also had someone reach out to me. I didn't tell you this, DM me on Instagram and said, I may not be an investor or a producer, but I'm a busy mom and I can't keep track of like all of my kids and everything coming at me all at the same time. So we're beyond like the business. This is also just a human service, like helping us. Stephen Covey talks about like sharpening the saw, one of his 7 habits of highly effective people. I mean, if we keep doing the same, I felt this, Tony, fighting against the stream of like, how many emails do people get every day? What's that stat?
88 emails a day on average for every adult. But I think if you're an entrepreneur or you're a parent, that number is probably a lot higher.
I have felt that swimming upstream, and now to be like inbox zero convert, I wish I could explain, thank you, like the emotional release, but also like the sense of space and like centeredness. You're so good at talking about how you can create that change from taking time to organize your email. Yes, so important.
Yeah, I think that it definitely plays in. And, you know, we're not brought up in this world of dings and pings and red flags and constant notification. So, and some people, for whatever reason, they thrive on that. But I think what this course is for is efficacy, right? Whether it's whether it's inbound or outbound, it really just is about efficacy and getting out of your inbox as quickly as possible and moving on with your day.
So when we talk about common hurdles, Tony, that people have to face when thinking about making the real change to their email systems, or if they want to start a new business or a new production, like what are some of the biggest hurdles? You want to set people up for success. What are the biggest hurdles for them?
I think knowledge is like the first hurdle, because they don't know what they don't know. You mentioned starting a new show, starting a new business. And so even then, Megan Ann, this is a conversation that we had in another call of, I think you have to think long term as well. So what is the lifespan of this project? Will it involve a lot of people? One example, Tegan has all kinds of domains for his various properties. So we just added the domain as a domain alias. So he can be Tegan at James Dean Musical, Tegan at MalcolmXmusical.com. And so that's not having to pay $72 a year for every inbox. And then those emails can still come in color coded. But I think the obstacle, and I had to face it myself, is change. Some people don't want to change. They want to hold on to that AOL, Yahoo, Hotmail, or Outlook, whatever it is that they're using. And I think that might be the first step, is like the ability and the willingness to consider slight adjustments. Yeah. And then there's all kinds of fun tools. You mentioned, being drowned by emails. We don't realize that we have the power to unsubscribe from all of these things, or just say no if DSW asks for your email. So it accumulates over time, and it is a nice purge to be able to to clear the clutter.
I want to talk about the importance of branding, personal branding, whether it's a business. We were talking about businesses or a personal brand. You talk in your course about how you can sign an email with your name and that it's a reinforcement of a personal brand, that email can help us stay on top of mind. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think a brand, the definition of it is a name, an identity, but really how other people respond. So I can say Nike or I can show you the swoosh symbol, but the strength of their brand is how you react to either that name or the ID. For us as personal brands, not corporations, the way that people respond to your name or your face is really what I try to say is like what you want to try to consider when it comes to tone, timing, frequency, all the things. Your email every day is an opportunity for you to brand that message, that it says Megan Ann Rasmussen or MAR Productions. That's who it's from. The address that it's from office at Megan Ann, or is it from support at Megan Ann? Like these are small things that can make people say like, oh, wow, they have a large company. And then the signature is the final opportunity. And that's something that I love to teach and to encourage people to make it dynamic. So your signature could be changed every time you have a new podcast episode that says like, take a listen to our episode with XYZ. I have myself right now, we have a couple of signatures going based off of if someone is in the course, then I don't need to advertise the course. I put our standard signature, but I'm using my email signature right now on every message that goes out to let people know about the class. But yeah, branding, it's an opportunity that it's also, if there were a list of names, let's say that you have a list of investors or actors or whatever it might be. If someone says that their email is mar@meganannrasmussen.com and everyone else is Gmail and Hotmail, I might go research meganannrasmussen.com. So I just think it's an opportunity that will pay off. And I can throw a statistic your way. For every $1 you spend on email, the ROI with a 2023 research study is $42 in return. So there is a 4,000% return on investment for every $1 you're willing to spend on email.
Time is money and time is email. I mean, that's got to be part of the equation. What else adds to that? I mean, I heard you talk about like the treasure hunt and finding even unclaimed money in email. But why do you think that statistic is so high? Because it's old school, it's traditional, it's proven. I think with social media, again, that can be a shiny world that because there are influencers that everyone thinks that they can become rich and famous. But as we see Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and others figuring out how they can make money as privacy and data laws change, the bottom line, you're reaching 10% of your audience or less on social media. Whereas if you're sending an email, you're reaching 90% of them or more. And I'm specifically talking kind of an average of marketing emails and just direct emails. It's just a more effective reach and it's a more personal reach. One of the things to think about is your email is landing there alongside their teacher, their parents. So that's why I say email is golden and to really like nurture those relationships, because if you build that relationship, then when you send an email asking them to vote for you or donate or whatever it might be, people are like, of course, I love you. I'll make that change. Tony, before you share the specifics about email excellence, One Pro operations, and what this course is now and why it's important in April, can you give us a pull out the perf review of how email excellence fits into your program of helping people be a healthy CEO?
Sure. So I have a free class on my website, tonyhowell.co, that is called the Business Blueprint. And that has taken 10 years to create, but it goes over this methodology that, I mean, it started with social media. And then what you said is like, I'm help people become a healthy CEO. So within the ecosystem, I don't like calling it the Tony Howell method, but if Alvin Ailey and Martha Graham and all these people can have a method, then I think I can. Business or entrepreneurship is really looking at why you are on the planet, your purpose, and making sure that you are fulfilling that purpose without getting distracted by hashtags or whatever it might be. Brand is human to human connection. It's the relationship. It's the shared humanity. It's why I light up when I see the Green Mermaid, because I know I can go get that venti iced coffee. We talk about how you build a brand. Website is the cornerstone. I believe everyone needs a website. If you have a birth certificate, you should have a domain. And it can grow and change and morph and evolve with you. It doesn't have to be a museum of here's everything I've ever done, unless that's later in life and you want to create that legacy. But it is it's a hub for people to see all the things that you've got currently going on or coming up. Email is that missing piece that we often overlook. So I think of it as plumbing, that once you have a home that people are visiting, that's where things flow. If it's a store, it's the cash register. It's where transactions are taking place. And then social media is the end of the line. That is, in business words, that's top of funnel. That's reminding people that you're in existence and nurturing those relationships. You don't have to post all the time. As long as you stay at the party and you give thumbs up to people and smile at them, then you're doing your job on social media. So I think email is that critical piece that, again, it's easy to overlook, but like the plumbing in your house, suddenly you have a huge problem. It's like, why not be preventative and get those copper pipes right now, get it flowing.
Oh, Tony, I really love how you've created this framework and all the details and the research and the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into each component. For those who are listening, who are the emerging producers or the first-time investors or people who are excited about Broadway, tell them how they would find this email course. How would we find you? How do we get into your framework?
Well, I'm sure Megan Ann will include a link with this episode, so that will be easy. But the address is joinemaileexcellence.com. It's going to have all of the information about the course. But specifically, if you're listening to this now in April of 2023, we're doing a launch promotion where it is 50% off. So I wouldn't wait. You can take the course at your own speed, but I would register now. I still have a few spots. So for the first 10 people that join, I'm giving a social media bonus, which is our annual recurring calendar, so that you know when the Grammys, when the Tonys, when it's National Tap Dance Day, all of that is in a calendar. And we also have a social media management workshop there so that people can start to schedule their social media. As I'm sure you can talk about, around when you're opening a show, it's like one more thing for you to do. But if you have it pre-scheduled in advance, then it's weight off your shoulders that you can just lay back and enjoy the comments that come in.
Tony, I can speak from personal experience that the ROI on this investment is so valuable, that being able to take time to think through email specifically, healthy CEO generally, has been life-changing for me. You really have laid the foundation for me to be able to do the things that I'm doing. And I'm amazed at how I need to come back and sweep out the cobwebs, sweep out the floor sometimes, right? To make sure that, because things change, right? Technology changes, Facebook changes, algorithm changes, like new things, Reels, TikTok, like it's always evolving. And so in being able to have someone with your expertise who is willing to share to help build this Broadway community, to build the human community, is such a gift. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
My pleasure. Well, I'm glad that you ended with human, because I'm like, humanity evolves, like we all evolve. So as these things affect our day-to-day life, we also kind of have to see how they play in. But Megan, I'll go back. It's like, I try to like step into my purpose. That's why I'm doing everything I'm doing. And it's just an honor for me to continue to do that for other people, to help them get aligned so that they can make the biggest impact as well.
If people want to find you, TonyHowell.co is a great way to find you. What other channels should we look for? We find you on Instagram.
I'm pretty much Tony Howell everywhere. I love DMs. So if you listen to this, just say hi. I'd love to know who's out there. But yeah, that works. Website or social media.
For everyone listening, I would highly encourage you to, 1, sign up for this email course, which will change your life, and that's not hyperbole. 2, familiarize yourself with Tony Howell, his framework. It is a blessing to be in his community, and you meet wonderful people, and that pays dividends daily. It's really true. So thank you again, Tony Howell, for being with us. I'm so excited for your email excellence course and the relaunch of this 10-year effort. I'm wishing you every success always.
Thank you, Megan Ann. It is a blessing always to be in your presence, even just digitally. So thank you for everything you give to us.